My name is Tyler. I'm 17 years old, and for most of my life, I've lived in a house that never really felt like home. To anyone on the outside, our family probably looked ordinary. A small house on the edge of town, peeling white paint, a garden my mother used to care for, and a father who mowed the lawn on Sundays. But behind our closed doors, things were twisted, not in the way that makes headlines, in the way that's quiet, suffocating, like slow poison. My mother wasn't violent, not physically, but she had a voice sharp enough to cut skin. Every morning was a storm. Are you going to wear that again? No wonder you have no friends. Why can't you be normal, Tyler? She'd say these things in the same tone she used to ask if I wanted toast. Cold, mechanical, like she wasn't even looking at me, just at a broken thing she didn't know how to fix. Dad was worse, in a way, because he said nothing at all, ever. He used to talk, I think, when I was younger, but at some point, maybe when I turned 10, maybe earlier, he just shut off, stopped making eye contact, stopped noticing whether I existed or not. The only sound I'd hear from him was the flick of his lighter and the clink of a beer bottle on the table. Every night, without fail. I remember sitting at the kitchen table once, trying to tell them that I was being bullied at school. I didn't cry, that I just wanted someone to hear me. Mom kept scrolling through her phone. Dad got up, walked out onto the porch, and lit a cigarette. That was their way of saying, "We don't care." So I stopped talking. At school, I was invisible. No one bullied me anymore, because no one noticed me anymore. I drifted through hallways like a ghost. I ate lunch behind the art building. I pretended I liked being alone. But inside, I was screaming for something, for anyone to just see me. The walls of our house got smaller each year, the air heavier. I started spending more time walking aimlessly after school, just to avoid going home. My room became the only space I had, and even then, Mom would barge in without knocking to criticize the way I kept my bed or accuse me of hiding something. She once threw my sketchbook in the trash. I'd spent weeks drawing in it landscapes, faces I'd imagined, a self-portrait I was actually proud of. She didn't even look. "It's a waste of time," she said. "You think drawing is going to save you?" No, but maybe it was the only thing keeping me. Then, 3 weeks ago, it happened. It was a Thursday. I remember that because the house smelled like cheap garlic bread. Mom always made frozen pasta on Thursdays. I came home later than usual. My phone had died, and I'd been walking by the lake near the industrial park, thinking about nothing and everything. The second I walked in, Mom exploded. "Where the hell have you been?" Her voice was louder than usual. Her eyes wide, glassy. "I called your school. They said you left hours ago." I tried to explain, but she wasn't listening. "You're hiding something. You're on drugs, aren't you?" Dad stood behind her, silent, arms crossed. His jaw was tight, eyes sunken. "No," I said quietly. "I was just walking." "You liar," she hissed, and then she did something she hadn't done in years. She slapped the glass off the counter. It shattered across the tile, shards flying. I flinched, instinctively stepping back. Then I looked up, and I realized something. They didn't love me. Not even a little. Not even by mistake. That night, I packed a backpack, 3 shirts, a notebook, some food, my sketchbook, the new one I kept hidden in the vent. I took $42 I'd saved from cleaning old Mrs. Langley's garage down the street. At 2:17 a.m., I opened the window and stepped out into the dark. I didn't cry. Not then. I just walked, and I didn't look back. The streets are never really quiet. Not at night. Not when you're 17 and walking with a backpack full of shirts and a head full of noise. That first night, I didn't have a plan, only a direction, a way. The town wasn't big, but in the dark it felt endless. I avoided the main roads, kept to alleyways and empty lots. The wind picked up around 3 a.m., sharp and cold, like it had been waiting to find skin like mine. I didn't bring a jacket. I didn't bring anything that really mattered, because at the time, all I wanted was out. The bus station was closed. I sat on the cold bench, outside it anyway. My hands were shaking, either from the chill or from adrenaline. I tried not to think about what I'd just done, not to replay the look on Mom's face, or how Dad didn't say a word. Just stood there like always, like a stranger. I took out my sketchbook that I couldn't draw. My fingers were too stiff, but I held it, just held it, like it could keep me whole. Around 4:20 a.m., a man in a puffy jacket with duct tape patches sat on the other end of the bench. He smelled like wet cardboard and something metallic. I tensed, bracing myself. But he didn't even look at me. Just lit a cigarette, stared into the night, and whispered to no one. It's always coldest when you've got nowhere to be. I don't know if he was talking to me. I didn't answer, but I remembered his words. By sunrise, I had blisters on both feet. The laces of my shoes dug into my ankles. The backpack felt like a stone on my spine. I found a 24-hour laundromat and sat inside pretending to wait for clothes. The heat from the machines was almost enough to let me sleep, but I didn't dare close my eyes. What if someone saw me? What if the police picked me up? What if they called them? The thought made me nauseous. So I sat there, watching dryers spin, listening to the hum, and I thought about what came next. I couldn't go to my best friend Liam's house. His parents would call mine in a heartbeat. I had no relatives in town, and older cousins with a couch. No secret savings, and oh miracle escape. Just me. By the second day, I started to feel it. Not just the exhaustion, but the emptiness. Like I'd cut myself loose from a sinking ship, only to realize I didn't know how to swim. But there was one place I remembered, the old underpass by Sycamore Bridge. Years ago, some older kids used to hang out there and smoke. Maybe they still did. Maybe no one did anymore. I found it before dark. It reeked of old piss and beer, crushed cans, graffiti, and a pile of discarded blankets in the corner. But no people. So I sat down, curled up next to the driest part of concrete I could find, and I waited for sleep. The first real tear slid down my cheek sometime after midnight. I wasn't strong, that I wasn't brave. I wasn't anything really, just a kid under a bridge with no home and no future and no one looking for him. But I didn't regret leaving. Not for a second. Because even though the world was cold and sharp and loud, at least it was real. At least it was mine. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have to apologize for breathing. By the third day, I stopped feeling the cold. It was still there, in my toes, in my spine, in the way my breath fogged in the morning air, but my body had grown numb. What I did feel was hunger. It was different than just being hungry. It became everything. IT rang in my ears, pulled at my ribs, made my vision blur. I hadn't eaten since the granola bar I stuffed in my backpack the night I left. I was running out of options and time. I spent most of the morning walking through the neighborhood near Brook Street, where the houses looked slightly less tired than the one I left. The sidewalks were clean. The trash bins didn't overflow. It felt like another world. I passed a corner store 3 times before I got the nerve to go in. I wasn't going to steal. Not yet. But I needed something. Inside, it was warm. Too warm that IT made the dizziness worse. I hovered near the shelf of snack cakes, staring so long I must have looked like I was trying to hypnotize them. "Can I help you?" came a voice. I turned. The clerk was young, maybe in his 20s, with a mop of dark curls and a bored expression. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing came out. He frowned. You good, kid? I nodded. Then I turned and walked out before my legs betrayed me. A few blocks away, behind a gas station, I finally broke. I sat behind a dumpster, pulled my knees to my chest, and let the hunger scream through me. I felt stupid, weak, like every terrible thing my mother had ever said about me was true. Then I heard a voice. Hey, you all right? I looked up. A girl stood a few feet away, holding a brown paper bag. She had bright blue hair under a gray beanie, oversized hoodie, and a kind of calm that made her look like she didn't scare easy. I'm fine, I croaked. My throat felt like sandpaper. She tilted her head. You don't look fine. Before I could stop her, she walked over and handed me the bag. Inside, a ham sandwich, half a banana, and a bottle of water. I stared at it like it was a trap. I'm not asking for anything, she said. Just figured. You look like you could use it. I wanted to say thank you to... I wanted to ask her name. I wanted to sob and tell her everything. Instead, I nodded. She smiled, not a pity smile, but one that said, I see you. Then she turned and walked away. I devoured the food like an animal. There was no shame, only survival. When it was done, I leaned back against the cold brick wall and stared at the sky. Blue-gray, wide, indifferent. That was the first time I didn't feel completely invisible since I left. That sandwich didn't save my life, but it reminded me I had won. That night, I returned to the underpass. Same spot, same cold, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't just running anymore. I was searching. I woke up with a bruise on my hip from sleeping on concrete and the sound of traffic echoing off the overpass. It took me a few seconds to remember where I was. Then it all came back, the fight, the escape, the sandwich. I sat up slowly, muscles stiff from the cold. My stomach had stopped growling, but it wasn't satisfied. My body was already calculating the next meal. Before I even stood up, I headed downtown. Not because I had a plan, but because I needed to see people, to remind myself I was still part of the world. On 12th and Main, I saw them point two figures sitting on a crate beside a boarded-up store. One was a woman with dreadlocks, maybe late 20s, smoking a cigarette with chipped black nail polish. The other was a guy around my age, buzzcut, hunched over a skateboard like it was his last possession. They noticed me, watched me, didn't say a word until I passed. You runnin' or lookin'? The woman said. I paused. Neither. She laughed. Then you're lost. Which is worse? The guy glanced up, eyes sharp. You hungry? I nodded once. He reached into his backpack and tossed me a granola bar. Name's Marcus. I caught it midair. Tyler. The woman flicked her cigarette. I'm Ray. Sit down, ghost boy. You look like you've been floating. We talked. Or rather, they talked. I listened. They weren't like me. Not exactly. Marcus had left foster care after too many punches. Ray had escaped a boyfriend who nearly choked her once in front of her baby brother. They weren't weak. They weren't crazy. They were survivors. And for the first time, I started to understand something. I wasn't the only one. By mid-afternoon, we were at the back of a diner where Ray knew a guy who sometimes let them wash dishes for leftover food. Marcus handed me a dirty towel and said, "Just act like you've done this before." We cleaned plates, stacked trays, emptied bins. The manager didn't ask for names. That night, we split fries behind the dumpster and shared silence like it was something sacred. But nothing good lasts forever out here. As the sun disappeared behind rooftops, a tall man in a torn army jacket walked around the corner. His presence was heavy, like he carried violence in his pockets. "Yo," he said to Ray. "You back in my spot." She stood, spine straight. "Didn't see your name on the wall." Marcus muttered, "Let's go." but the man stepped closer. "You owe me, Ray." My pulse kicked into overdrive. I didn't know what he meant, but I saw Ray's hand tremble just slightly, a crack in her usual armor. Marcus grabbed my arm. "Move. Now." We walked, fast, not running. That showed fear, but my skin prickled all over. Ray caught up a few blocks later, quiet, biting her lip. "Don't talk to that guy again," she said. "His kindness comes with strings." I didn't ask what kind. That night, I didn't go back to the underpass. I slept in a junkyard bus with Marcus and Ray, curled up on a seat that smelled like dust and rubber. And for a few hours, despite the danger, despite the unknown, I didn't feel alone. 3 days passed. 3 days of washing dishes, sleeping in an abandoned bus, dodging angry men, and pretending I wasn't afraid of every loud voice or sudden step behind me. Ray said that was the first thing you learn out here: never flinch too hard. Fear made you a target. Fear got you used. But by now I was too tired to flinch. Marcus and I had started walking to the diner each morning like it was a real job. It wasn't, of course. We weren't on any peril. But the manager, a big woman named Carla, with faded tattoos and eyes that didn't miss much, let us clean and scrape for scraps. She didn't talk much, but she didn't kick us out either, and that counted as kindness in our world. Then, one afternoon, something changed. As I was wiping down a table, Carla walked up to me and tossed a wet towel into the bin. "You got hands," she muttered. "You got sense. You want something steadier." I froze. "Not charity," she added. "It's late shifts. Trash, dishes, maybe some sweeping. Cash under the table. You in?" My throat tightened. Was this real? I think so." "Yeah," I said. She nodded. "Be here tomorrow. Midnight." Just like that. A door creaked open. That night, Marcus was quiet. Usually he'd crack jokes or complain about his aching back, but not now. "You sure about this?" he asked, once Ray fell asleep. "What do you mean?" He leaned back on the bus seat, staring at the ceiling like he could see the stars through the rusted metal. "Sometimes people pretend to help, but they just want to own you. Carla seems decent, but you don't know her." I wanted to believe the worst was behind me. I wanted to think people were good, or at least better than my parents. But I also knew what Marcus was really saying. Be careful who you trust. Still, it felt like something real, and I was so tired of floating. The next night, I showed up at midnight sharp. Carla handed me an apron and a pair of gloves. No small talk, and no suspicious looks. Just work. Hours passed. I scrubbed dishes until my hands ached, took out bags of trash that leaked warm water down my pants, cleaned gum off a booth cushion with a dull knife. But I didn't care, because when my shift ended, Carla pulled out a folded envelope. Inside, $35 cash, wrinkled bills, and for the first time in weeks, I earned something. I walked out into the morning air, just as the sun peeked over the city skyline. It painted the buildings orange and gold, like even this worn-out place could glow if it wanted to. I stood there, still in my apron, holding that envelope to my chest like a lifeline. No, it wasn't a future yet, but it was a start. And for a kid who once thought he'd never have anything of his own, that meant the world. It took me 5 shifts, 5 long nights of sweat, blisters, and silent rides in the back of buses, before I saved up enough to rent a room. Not a real apartment, just a single room above a closed-down liquor store, the kind with yellowed wallpaper, a leaky faucet, and a flickering light bulb that hummed like it had something to say, but didn't know how. But to me, it was a palace. The guy who rented it, Rico, didn't ask for ID, just cash. His breath smelled like menthol and regret. "Don't cause noise. Don't bring junkies. That's it." I nodded. handing him $140 in wrinkled bills. For the first time since I left home, I had 4 walls and a lock that answered to me. That first night, I lay on the springy mattress in my new room and stared at the stained ceiling. I didn't sleep that I couldn't, because silence, real silence, had returned, and it was louder now. Out on the street, I always felt alert, wired, half scared. But inside that room, I felt naked, nothing to do but think. And the thoughts came fast. I thought about the old lamp on my nightstand that reminded me of the one in my mom's hallway, about how my dad used to leave the hallway light on, even after he stopped talking, like some part of him still cared if I got scared in the dark. But he never knocked when I cried, not once. I caught my reflection in the mirror above the sink around 3 a.m. I looked older, gaunt at my jaw sharper. Circles under my eyes, like bruises I forgot I had. And yet, something about my face looked clearer, like the fog of my life had finally started to lift, revealing someone I didn't recognize, but didn't hate. I touched the mirror. "I'm still here," I whispered. And for the first time, I believed it. The next morning, I cleaned the room, wiped the dust off the windowsill, bought a second-hand blanket from a street vendor for $5. It had cartoon rockets on it, clearly made for a child, but it made the room feel like mine. Ray and Marcus came by that afternoon. They stood in the doorway, stunned. "Damn," Ray said. "You got a door now." Marcus whistled. "Look at you, Mr. Fancy." I grinned. Not because of pride, but because for the first time in weeks, someone walked into my space, instead of me sneaking into someone else's. That night, I drew, for hours. Faces, streets, the view from the underpass, the diner's kitchen, Ray's crooked smile, Marcus's skateboard, and in the center of the page, me. Not as I was, but as I wanted to become. Strong, still. Here. The envelope was thin, white, slightly torn at the edge. It showed up at the diner, not handed to me, not mailed properly, just left. Carla found it on the back counter and called my name, waving it like it was nothing. "Some kid dropped this off. Said it was for you." I stared at it. There was no return address. Just my name, my real name, not the fake one I sometimes used when I was nervous. No misspellings, no guesswork. Just clean handwriting and familiarity I didn't ask for. And my stomach dropped. I didn't open it. Not right away. I folded it carefully and slid it into my back pocket like it was some fragile threat. It stayed there all night while I cleaned greasy pans and swept crumbs from the floor. I could feel it against my leg the entire shift, like it had a pulse. That envelope was home, not the house, not the furniture or the rooms. The pain, the history, the way my mother used words like knives and my father used silence like a cage. I walked back to my room around 4 a.m., rain misting the streets, cold seeping into my sleeves. The city felt different that night, quieter, watching. When I got inside, I sat on the edge of the bed, stared at the letter, and finally, I opened it. It was from my mother. Not long. Not warm. No apologies. "Tyler, I don't know where you are. I'm not even sure why I'm writing this. The house is empty without you. Your father barely speaks now. Not that he did before. I suppose we weren't good at being parents. Maybe we still aren't. I found one of your drawings behind the radiator. A face. Maybe yours. I didn't throw it away. I don't know if that matters. I just thought you should know. Mom." That was it. "No, please come home." "No, I miss you. Just thought you should know." I read it 3 times. Each time, the words cut a little differently. And I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't sad, but because I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to tear it up, burn it, prove that she had no power left over me. But a deeper part the part still learning how to be human again. Just folded it and placed it in the drawer beside my bed, not as an invitation to return, but as a reminder. I left for a reason, and I'm not going back. That same night, I stayed up sketching. This time, I drew a boy standing at a crossroads. Behind him, a crumbling house. In front of him, a vast city skyline. And the boy, he wasn't scared anymore. He was just walking. The letter stayed in my drawer for a week. I didn't open it again, that I didn't need to. I kept working every night, every shift. Carla started trusting me more. She even left me with keys once, said I had that face that wouldn't steal a salt packet. Her way of saying she saw me, that meant more than I could admit. Marcus drifted. He said he was thinking of heading west, maybe to Portland, maybe to nowhere in particular. Ray got a part-time job walking dogs for a woman who didn't care about her blue hair or chipped eyeliner. We were all slowly, painfully pulling ourselves from the wreckage. One night, after a double shift, Carla tossed me a small envelope. Not like the letter. This one had a logo. There's a community center down on 8th. They're running a mentorship thing. Art stuff. I thought of you. I blinked. Why? I asked, too surprised to filter it. Carla shrugged. Because you draw like you've been through hell, and people listen when it's real. I went. Not right away. But eventually, I walked into that room with 3 pencils and shaking hands. They called it Voices Unseen, a program for youth who'd lost their place in the world. And the moment I pinned one of my sketches to the wall, the boy on the overpass, the cracked diner floor, the eyes of a girl handing me a sandwich, something shifted. They didn't just look at the drawing. They saw me. Weeks passed. I started speaking at their group nights. Quiet at first. One-sentence answers. But the more I shared, the less it hurt. And one evening I told them the whole story. About the yelling, the silence, the way the house always felt like walking on broken glass barefoot. And finally about leaving. I didn't cry, but my hands shook when I finished. A girl in the back, no older than 16, said, I didn't think anyone else ever did it. Left. I thought I was just broken. I looked her in the eye. No, I said, you're free. Now I wake up in my own bed. A real one. With sheets I picked. A toothbrush, that's just mine. A key I don't hide under my shoe. I'm not rich. I'm not famous. I still fight off the shadows sometimes when the night gets too quiet. But I'm here. I draw. I speak. I teach younger kids how to hold a pencil and tell the truth through it. Some of them cry. Some of them draw monsters with their mother's eyes. I never stop them, because I know what it means to finally say something when you've been quiet too long. A few weeks ago, I got another letter. This one was from my dad. Just 4 words, handwritten. I hope you're okay. I didn't write back, but I smiled, because I am.